Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your severe weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Good morning, it's Monday, August 22nd, and it looks like high pressure is finally building into the Northern Mid-Atlantic. And as you can see, plenty of dry air is coming along with it. Dew points are ranging anywhere from 50 to 56 degrees over portions of the Hudson River Valley and northeastern Pennsylvania and northwestern and northern New Jersey, and that dry air will continue to build south and east throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic. All of this translates to clearing skies, very comfortable conditions this afternoon, and temperatures generally near normal in the upper 70s to lower 80s. Overall, you couldn't ask for a better day to start off the week. How long will this last? Well, when we look at the latest satellite picture, right here, you can see high pressure setting up over portions of the central Great Lakes, and this high pressure system will continue to build towards the east and remain in control through at least Thursday morning. Now after Thursday morning, then the weather pattern gets very interesting. Why? Well, unfortunately, we have a hurricane, the first hurricane of the season. I want to point this out first. Notice this. The location is 19 north, 67.2 west. Why is that important? I'm going to show you in just a moment. But also notice the winds right now are up to 80 miles per hour, so our hurricane is starting to intensify. Irene is moving to the west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Again, keep an eye on this. And pressure is down to 990 millibars or 29.23 inches of mercury. So again, notice 19 north, 67.2 west, and still moving to the west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Why is that important? Well, I have the track here. Now let's go to the latest satellite picture. Here we are. Irene is certainly starting to intensify, and the center, based on the information we have, 19 north, 67.8 west. Here we are, right here. Here's our center, right? And here is the forecast track. Notice anything different? Okay, the forecast track is here. The center is here. The center is north of the track, the forecasted track from the National Hurricane Center. Now, I'm expecting this to be updated at the 11 a.m. update, and this track shifted to the north and possibly to the northwest. Why am I pointing this out? Well, because the exact track and position of Irene as it's moving towards the Bahamas is going to be extremely important in determining what's going to happen later on this week as far as the entire East Coast. Will Irene make landfall? There's a potential for that. But I'm going to show you something that would suggest that perhaps Irene misses the coast completely. So let's take a look at the GFS model guidance, which is pretty much on par with all the other model guidance, and it really isn't all that much different from the European model guidance. So let me just position this right here so you can get a perfect view. There we go. Okay, so we start out with today, right? We have high pressure control, the cold front's leaving, dry air is building in, no problem. And that remains in place all the way until Thursday. Now, Thursday afternoon, the cold front moves through. This is a weak cold front. Notice the trough is well up in Canada. There really isn't much of an impact as far as lifting over the mid-Atlantic states, but we could see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms. And the air mass ahead of this cold front is not really all that warm and unstable. I mean, it is in the 80s, but the humidity really isn't all that impressive compared to what we were dealing with the past few days. And again, the majority of the lifting is focused more towards New England. But we could still see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms ahead of the cold front, but again, nothing impressive. So the Hurricane Irene, move this here, is forecasted to be over the central Bahamas. But again, Irene is tracking further north just a bit compared to what the model guidance is suggesting. So let's assume then Irene is more like around here, and you might be asking, well, why is that important? Well, if Irene is a little bit further north, the influence from these troughs is going to be greater. So perhaps Irene accelerates more to the northwest, or maybe it starts moving a little bit more north than northwest. We're going to have to keep an eye on that, because the further north, the more latitude that Irene gains going forward, the more influence these troughs over portions of southeastern Canada will have on the track of Irene. Now we move forward to Friday, and again the forecast here is for Irene to approach the Florida coast, and it looks like it could become a major hurricane. But we also have a trough approaching from the Great Lakes. Now again, let's assume that Irene's a little bit further north, more like, let's say, off the coast of Georgia, right on the Gulf Stream. It's intensifying, it's powerful, and we have this trough approaching. Well, at 120 hours, this trough starts to have a little bit more influence. As we move forward in time, here's our trough, here's our hurricane. Now let's say our hurricane's a little bit further north. Well, then the influence from this trough is a little greater. And instead of Irene continuing to move to the northwest, well, maybe it starts moving more to the north, and instead of sitting over portions of South Carolina and Georgia, maybe it's off the coast a little bit more, because Irene ends up a little bit further north than what the forecast is suggesting, which would have more of an influence on this trough. So this is something we're going to keep an eye on moving forward. We could see Irene make landfall on the southeast coast and produce significant damage, very heavy rainfall, just really bad impacts. Or Irene could remain off the coast and start turning more to the north. And then as we move forward, of course, for this coming weekend, all eyes, of course, are on the East Coast and on the northern Mid-Atlantic, where we're already running in many locations 600 to 800% above normal rainfall over portions of the Delaware River Valley through the New York City Metro and into Connecticut. So obviously an interaction like this of Irene moving up the coast, impacting and becoming influenced by not only this trough, but also having rainfall enhanced by orographic lifting along the Appalachian Mountains, could produce a significant rainfall event and flash flooding. But again, we have to remember that if Irene is a little bit further north and there's more influence from these troughs on the track, then Irene could stay off the coast and remain off the coast. And if Irene remains off the coast, usually what happens with the precipitation on the westward side of these tropical lows is that it collapses faster than what the model guidance is suggesting, because of dry air on the land. And that dry air tends to zap some of the power of tropical systems. We saw this last year. We see this quite commonly, that the model guidance just doesn't really handle that aspect of a tropical system very well. So again, there is no certainty in this forecast. We could end up with just a major rain event, flash flooding, wind damage, coastal flooding, or it could remain out in the Atlantic, especially if Irene is a little bit further north and continues to remain a little bit further north and east of the actual storm track that it has in place from the NHC. And if that's the case, could be a close miss, and that would be far more beneficial than a major heavy rain event that creates tremendous amount of flooding, coastal flooding, and wind damage. So clearly we're going to keep an eye on this situation throughout this week, and that's pretty much going to be the main story throughout this week. Thank you for trusting in NYNJPA Weather as your severe weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. To find the latest weather information and severe weather coverage, always trust in NYNJPAweather.com or find NYNJPA Weather on Twitter, Facebook, and Tumblr. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Have an excellent day.